Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a Crimson Fire Loropetalum. This is Crimson Fire Loropetalum, a beautiful purple foliage, pink flowering evergreen shrub. Crimson Fire can reach 4 feet in height and about 4 to 5 feet in width over time. It has a definite prostrate habit, meaning it kind of grows flatter to the ground instead of the spikiness that other Loropetalum have. So it'd be very easy to keep this plant in the probably 3 foot in height and 4 foot in width size. Like most Loropetalum, Crimson Fire is best in zones 7 to 9. In zone 7A, if you put this out in the middle of a parking lot somewhere, it's almost certainly going to get nuked. 1 out of every 10 winters. Probably want to use it as a foundation plant or someplace where, you know, on the edge of a wooded area, that kind of thing. In zone 7B, 8 or 9, no problem at all. You can pretty much use it wherever you'd want to use it. Crimson Fire has a much slower growth rate than some of the older Loropetalum that got 8, 10, even 20 feet tall when I started in this business. I can't believe we actually have Loropetalum that will stay this low now. This thing will probably add about 6 inches all the way around in a season, which is still moderately fast growing, but nothing like those old varieties that could grow 3 feet, you know, twice a season in between prunings. In terms of sun or shade, pretty much any purple Loropetalum is going to need at least a half a day's sun, and really they can take all the way to full sun. The best color on the foliage definitely appears in the sun. And the same thing with the flowers. If you put this in less than a half a day's sun, it's going to be very thin and very few flowers on it. There are a lot of different uses for Crimson Fire Loropetalum. I never thought we'd have a Loropetalum that could grow under 3 or 4 foot windows, but this one can. So it makes a great foundation plant. In zones 8 and 9, you could probably use it as a container plant and have this really nice color, you know, all winter long in a container next to your porch. That would be great. In zone 7, almost certainly if the roots froze solid in the wintertime for any length of time, it'd do a lot of damage to it. So probably not a good idea there. And then, of course, this plant would look fantastic mass planted. You know, if you had 5 or 7 or 9 of these and then some other foliage plant that had some yellow coloration in it, it would look absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's go through the highlights of this plant. It's evergreen, it has purple foliage, it has pink flowers, spring and fall, and it's extremely low maintenance and very few insects or disease problems. It really, really is a good plant. And there's not a lot of these patented plants you'll hear me rave about. A lot of them aren't as good as advertised. They're very good at advertising them in magazines and things like that, but not all of them are truly great plants. And this thing is really fantastic. It's so rare to have one of these plants really do all that it advertises. I've been extremely impressed with this plant. If you have 3 foot windows on the sunny side of your house and you're in zone 7 to 9, this is an absolutely fantastic pick for that type of situation. And you know, having it flower twice a year is just really awesome. They're pink little frilly flowers. If you haven't seen Loropetalum flowers, they're really, really interesting. You know, you really could probably live without them and still have this thing be a fantastic plant with the purple foliage year round. In terms of planting Loropetalum, I've linked in the description of this video a guide for planting them in clay soils or in sandy soils, 2 separate videos. Just follow those best practices of elevating it and lightly mulching it, and you should be fine. These are pretty easy to plant. One issue you will have on any Loropetalum is they're kind of easy to break off at the container. So when you take it out of the container, I would flip it upside down and pull the pot off overhead. I included that in the videos to show you that this is just not a plant that you're going to be able to pick it up by the top of the plant at all without doing damage to it. For the first year, you'll want to keep an eye on the watering on your Loropetalum. Water it extremely well when you plant it and then let it dry out between waterings, typical of any other shrub. We want to let them dry out between waterings and between rains. We don't want to just water them constantly. This plant just really doesn't need it. After they've been in the ground for a year or so, not a lot of watering is ever going to need to be done to these. They're extremely drought tolerant. If you're in an area that gets regular rainfall, they're pretty good at losing a few interior leaves when they're dry. They'll let you know. This one's got a kind of an orangey leaf right here, and you'll see a lot of those appear in the middle when they're dry. Drag a water hose over to it when you see it and just drown the entire space around it and you should be fine. You can do a little pruning on the outside of it to fill that middle back in pretty quickly if it ever becomes severe. I would definitely fertilize my Loropetalum in the spring. It has this incredible new purple foliage on it. And then of course it flowers spring and fall. And fertilizer will definitely help with both of those things. Some sort of slow release fertilizer in the spring. Really any outdoor slow release fertilizer would probably be fine. Something that'll last 3 to 4 months and then run out midsummer. It's very important on this plant that we're not pushing new growth on it in the fall and early winter, because they will be damaged for sure if it's got a lot of new growth on it at that time. In terms of pruning, they're not going to require anywhere near as much pruning as some of the older varieties, Loropetalum, that got 20 feet tall. But you can probably wait till after they bloom in the spring. That's going to be around May, early May probably, when they're in bloom, maybe mid-May. And then you can cut it back as pretty much as hard as you want to. This is a plant that you can get away with probably cutting in half if you ever needed to once it's established. Yeah. Otherwise, if you're just trying to keep it 3 foot tall, you can just kind of cut it down to 2.5 foot tall, maybe once or twice a season it would take to keep it in that 3 foot height range. In terms of insect or disease problems, like I said, there's really not any chewing insects that will come along and mess with this plant. We really don't have to spray these for anything. They would definitely be susceptible to root rot. If you planted this plant flush or too deep and you buried it in soil or mulch and you put it on an automated irrigation system, this thing would almost certainly die over time. It would just decline. You'd see it get smaller and eventually die. Loropetalum are pretty much deer proof. Deer rarely ever mess with these. They can break them though. So if it's an area that gets a lot of foot traffic from deer, this plant's going to be very low to the ground when you first plant it and would easily be stepped on by even a pet. It may actually be an issue with a dog in a backyard situation where if you let your dog just roam, if they end up stepping in this thing, they could actually break it while it's kind of small. So keep that in mind. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow the purple foliage, pink flowering, low maintenance, dwarf Crimson Fire Loropetalum. Thank you for watching my video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also comment below with any questions you have about Loropetalum. Thanks again.